to hear more talking about that throughout the day.
We've created the Interplanetary Database, IPDB. So it sits right next to IP@Best, the file system. This is Interplanetary Database. It is oxygen of data for the planet. It is two things. It is a network running a public decentralized database, and it is a non-profit foundation governed by the network. As a foundation, it's actually a foundation here in Germany. It's an EV. We're actually going to be making it free for everybody until you start having heavy usage. This is very much like all the web apps you see today, where there's a freemium model, and then as you get to higher usage, then you have to start paying. So the organizations that take benefit from higher levels, they're the ones that will be covering the costs. So these are the caretakers that are in this initial bunch that we have spent a lot of time working with, and they've all signed on to this. And we're very proud. This has taken a lot of work. These are the people who care, who we've been working with, who will be running the initial nodes. There's the not-for-profits, and there's the for-profits. There's a few more that I can't announce today, but these include the not-for-profits in alphabetical order, Blockstack, which is the one-name guys, but they've actually rolled out a foundation. Koala, which is the people who do the blockchain workshops and have this vision for standards, etc. Dyn.org, which is an open software foundry. Internet Archive, I'm sure you all know, basically they've been swallowing the web since the 90s. Brewster had a vision, and thank God for Brewster, really. So we're really proud to be working with them. Open Media Foundation, well, open and media, so once again, a nonprofit. And On Monastery, which is a really interesting one. Monasteries, if you think about it, they are organizations that have been around not just for 100 years or 200 years, but for thousands of years. And On Monastery is an organization dedicated to bringing monasteries with their super long-term vision into the digital age. So we're very proud to be working with On Monastery as well. One of our goals actually is to see nodes in every single monastery in the world eventually. As well, on the for-profit side, there's Ascribe/BigChainDB, of course. Consensus Industries, one of the main Ethereum spin-offs. Eris Industries, which, believe it or not, they really care about the public. A lot of their profile is very private federation, but if you talk to the guys, and they actually have a very strong interest in the public. Protocol Labs, Juan with IPFS. SmartContract.com. Sergey and the guys are really thoughtful about governance. They've thought about this a ton. Scenario, which is doing blockchain technology as well as identity and reputation, etc. And finally, Tendermint, which is one of the leading organizations thinking about consensus itself. This is one for the commons. This is one for the planet, right? This is for identity and intellectual property and all of these other things that we care about as humanity. So we're very proud about this.
So as of today, it's the largest crowdfunded project in history. It's raised, depending on the Ether dollar price, about $150 million. And it enables people that have money and want to make a change in the world to directly connect to the people with a plan and time to make that change happen, basically. And we are now still in the very, very early days of this DAO.
There have been some pretty frighteningly positive coin sales and other ways of getting funding. Do you think that our model, the way we're doing it today, is a little bit under threat, that we're expecting a 20% equity stake for investing in a company, or do we need to be rethinking it and buying coins and other pieces of decentralized ecosystems?
The best way I think I can answer that question is to talk about something that I saw happen in the early 2000s. The VC industry did what I think was a pretty dumb thing. In the 90s, a large part of the venture capital industry was putting the internet infrastructure in place, switches, routers, chips. The model was that you backed a professor out of Stanford or Berkeley, and with a $3 million financing, Series A, they spent 2 years. They built something that was defensible through proprietary, patents and copyrights and things, and then they hired their sales force and blah blah blah, and ultimately sold it to AT&T or whatever. That went away with the early web. All of a sudden, it was a very, very different model, and a lot of those VCs, rather than investing in what they talked about as this fuzzy stuff on top that wasn't defensible and wasn't real hard technology, went to other places where they could repeat the model. They went to energy, they went to material science, they went to a bunch of these big bet places. All of those failed. The people who succeeded, and it's actually interesting that it's a new crop of VCs who didn't really exist in the 90s, who adapted to a new model where they couldn't get necessarily the 20% ownership up front, and they basically worked with the companies to figure out how to build a relationship that had been the dominant investors in this new crop of companies. And so I think that's going to happen again. I think it's incumbent on Kieran and I and everybody else who's one of the new crop of VCs to figure out if we can reinvent ourselves. The last guys had a really hard time with it. There's no guarantee that we can do it. It's a tough problem, but that's our problem.
The early stage. I think some of the products and some of the tools which are out there are still not, great yet. I think there's a lot of happened over the last 12 months already to make it easier for people to adopt it. I think once we are there, that key management, identity aspects are solved. Once we have solved some of the privacy aspects, which is still a question if you have consortiums, even the fact that you can see data across it. There's a lot of questions, and I think the industry is working on many of these interesting solutions. It is partly the education part, but I think once we have achieved that the tools itself can work, and we have the translation from contracts into code, then it's actually super efficient, and I think that's where it's super interesting. I think the DAO has 150 lines of code, so once we are there, it will be actually quite attractive. Even if the 43 banks would set up all a node, and they say only between them, even the fact that I can see what two other entities are transferring between them might already give me data which is more than I want to reveal. What's the price of their trading future? So there's a lot of questions which even in a consortium are not as easy to solve.
So most large enterprises are used to going to a technology provider and being able to buy your solution off the shelf. And that will solve an existing business need that they have. However, to the extent that probably the folks in this room generally are in the vicinity of 10% right, this is going to cause such massive shifts in the way that businesses and consumers interact with each other that there is going to be a need to internalize what is actually happening here rather than just going to a tech provider and buying something off the shelf that's going to solve all their needs.
Because key management, like everything we heard today, once you lose the key, it's great that your data is encrypted everywhere and you have the control. If you lose your key, you have a problem. And I think that's the same thing for every interaction with a blockchain or a smart contract. When you lose your key and you can't recover it, then that's a problem. Or if it's compromised. And that's something like where it's like fundamental challenge.
One of the things that's most exciting is this area around identity, because let's be frank, Microsoft has a massive market share around Active Directory, and if you can hook Active Directory up with keys and then you have an identity solution that will work in enterprises, that is a massive value add, and that actually would make Azure defensible vis-a-vis Cisco or AWS or any of the other cloud providers that are around.
Interesting is the maturity of the industry evolving, and we're moving away from just thinking through, we're thinking through the tools, we're thinking through the deployment of the tools, and we started to think through applications. And we started to think through applications in a much broader way than just end user application or consumer application, because there is a lot of things that are very helpful on the back end, on actually building software, on managing keys, on building, how do you build efficient software. And so the market of distributed application is much broader than either the enterprise app or the end consumer game. I think it's broader in the sense of how do you build software more broadly, and how do you leverage that capability. So, the good example.
When we say privacy, what we're talking about is power, right? What we're talking about here is consent. We're talking about the fact that we have built a new infrastructure, a new commons in which people live and work and share and trade and communicate. From every corner of the earth, every nation, every country, every nationality, even North Korea is connected to it, right? And despite this, we see that the rules are being changed. And the rules are being changed in the dark, in secret, without our knowledge, without our consent, without our participation. Are saying, well, we can't tell you about these things because then they won't work. It's not. More centrally, we know for a fact that these programs, particularly mass surveillance, as opposed to targeted surveillance, this is the indiscriminate dragnet collection, bulk collection of information, such as hacking Google's back-end data centers, is not effective. The White House investigated this. They created 2 independent commissions They looked at all the classified information, all the classified evidence. They interviewed the directors of the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, and everybody else. And their own report, right, the President's Review Group on Intelligence and Communications Technologies said, this is a direct quote from them, mass surveillance has not made a concrete difference in a single terrorism investigation. Not only was it not valuable furthering terrorism investigations, it had tremendous public impacts, and it had tremendous corporate impacts, right? The business relationship between you as entrepreneurs, you as startups, and your relationship to the state, because these are the people who issue licenses, right? These are the people who say you're certified to be in compliance with regulations. And now, when we know that the most trusted names on the internet, things that everybody knows from the PRISM program, all of these companies, doesn't matter whether they were huge, Microsoft, Apple, Yahoo, Google, all of these companies, through some reason or another, whether it was through incentive or threat, agreed to go beyond what the law required. All of this information could be requested on anybody who is not a United States citizen without any warrant at all. But the key is when we look at the structures and incentives that are being produced by these kind of policies, what we're losing is a sense of agency within civil society, right? Within the civilian sector of our countries, of our nations.
Great. We'd love to take more questions, but I think on that eloquent note, we've run out of time. Ed, thank you for coming back to Berlin and joining us here. We'd love, of course, to have you one day in person, if that's ever possible. So we also know that you're oversubscribed quite a bit, so thanks so much for making time for us here today, and we really appreciate you being here. Okay, it's a wrap. Let's go have a beer downstairs in the garden. Thanks, everyone.
St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go.
That's what we're going for. You want to change the language? So at the beginning, you said that the application developers can then look and say, okay, well, we have these options for different storage, we have these options for database, we have these for authentication, for reputation.